Hi there, ladies. You've tuned into Fierce and Fearless, the podcast that's all about empowering you, the modern, unstoppable woman. And I'm Sonali.
And I'm Zoe, joining you to dive headfirst into real, raw conversations about everything that matters to you. From the roller coaster ride of motherhood to the adrenaline rush of fitness and nutrition, the hustle bustle of entrepreneurship, and the undeniable importance of mental health.
As we navigate through the sisterhood journey, we are all set to debunk myths, challenge norms, and get really candid about everyday highs and lows of womanhood.
So, whether you're squeezing in an episode during your morning workout, during your well deserved coffee break, or after tucking the kids into bed, you're welcome. This is your time. It's us together. Welcome, ladies, to the first episode of Fierce and Fearless. Our topic today is Our Kids Are Mini Versions of Us. We will be discussing how our attitudes, teachings, actions shape our children. We all want to ace the parenting game. We want to raise confident, kind, and successful kids. But man, the advice out there can be confusing. That's for sure. I mean, Sonali and I, when you and I thought about doing this topic as our opening episode for our podcast, I remember us feeling super overwhelmed and so concerned because, parenting is like running the most rewarding marathon with 1,000 people kind of shouting directions at you all at once.
Absolutely, Zoe. So, it's critical to remember that children, being excellent observers, imbibe everything we do, right? It's harsh reality. So, as mothers, we are constantly flipping between the needs of our children, family, moms, and not to mention, we have the internet on our fingertips. So, we've got so much of information coming in. And we still have to ensure that we instill confidence, independence, and bring up really compassionate kids within this world and noise and chatter. So let's try and dive into this. And today's podcast is not really about how you should parent. It's really none of our business, to be honest, but it's more about the realization that you are now a parent and how we, Zoe and I, can enable you guys in a small way to just sort of make that journey simple, easy, and slightly more rewarding. So let's try and bring up our children who will become individuals who we genuinely admire without losing the essence of parenting in the process.
Very true. So for me, I see this wonderful stage of life as an opportunity and a responsibility, as well as a special gift. It's an adventure. At the same time, I'm not going to lie, because I, for one, really felt that I needed to be ready to take this stage of my life, which is motherhood, on, especially with regards to my profession and the changes that my body was going to experience. I needed time and less stress in other aspects of my life is what I believed. I felt like I needed knowledge. I wanted to be certified in pre- and postnatal training. I wanted to really know what I was about to go through. I wanted to be able to balance it properly. And I just wanted to make sure that I had things, I'm a bit of a control freak, as Sonali's beginning to notice. And I just wanted to make sure that I had a couple of things in place and, just feel balanced about it. And honestly, truth be told, there is no perfect time to become a mom. I do agree with that. But I have to say, even though I'm considered to be quite an old mom, I'm turning 39 in 10 days. And I'm about to have my second child in the next 2 months. And to be really honest, I'm actually glad that I waited. I actually am happy that I had this time and perspective to get myself prepared. And I'm, also not going to lie and be really open about it. But getting pregnant was not easy for me. I experienced 2 miscarriages, and that wasn't easy at all. I got lots of external pressure all the time. But, let's face it. Motherhood is all about becoming a new and improved version of ourselves. And we don't ever actually go back to being the old versions of ourselves. We have to just learn to embrace this new us.
That's so true. And that's really heartwarming to hear, Zoe. Everything does actually happen for a reason. I don't know, but I feel that things do, they all come in together, right? So yeah, so I'm glad that, you've had the journey that you've had. So let's jump right into it, right? So we're going to cover a lot today.
Yep. So we are ready. I think I'm going to start with the biggest shocker here that I think you and I agree on. And that is that there is actually, no matter how much research we have done, there is no right way to raise a child. Okay. We're both doing it. Parenting is anything but straightforward. It can be very mystical. It can be very demanding. It can be confusing, sometimes very thought provoking, and sort of like an emotional roller coaster, is what I would like to describe it as. There are times that I visualize myself responding to my son Zai like in this situation of like rage and fear because of what he's about to do or just done. And instead, I find myself like speaking calmly, softly, in this manner where in my head I'm saying something else, but I'm saying something else when it comes out. And I've really become so aware that I have this sort of tiny human being who watches, listens, and he sort of imitates everything that I do. It's like I'm on camera all the time. So I have to be super careful. As a parent, that's what I feel is happening.
Yes, amen to that, right? So, research actually does show us, and this is a bit of a tongue twister here, authoritative parents versus authoritarian parents, right? So, authoritative is basically those who are warm, empathetic, but yet strict, while authoritarian, are the ones who are cold, unempathetic, but strict. So, fear becomes the main driver for them, and while for the other side, it's all about explaining and going through the process over and over again so that the child understands, right? You still set boundaries, but you're slightly more explanatory about it. So, it's critical to start your style of parenting from the very beginning so that you can set the standards and you can carry through that. The more we keep switching and not following, the more confused they get. Our kids they're just so smart. It shocks me sometimes. So be consistent, choose your parenting style, and just flow with it.
Wow, because I'm really glad that I did not have to explain either of those two words. I don't think I can even say it. I have to also say that I definitely am a kind of maybe a merge of those two, depending on sometimes, but what actually ends up coming out of my mouth is always very different. One of the biggest things that I love doing and I feel has really helped me with my relationship with Zai is that I kind of speak to him like he's my friend. He's, sort of like my age. I try not to treat him in this very sort of baby like manner. I try and, use full sentences, explain situations, try and, tell him the whole story, tell him what I did for work or what I'm going to eat for lunch. What do you want to eat for lunch? I kind of like play with him and I kind of like involve him in a very sort of social setup between us. And I feel that it's created a situation of thought, patience. I can see his little mind working, strong decision making skills come out. And I feel like it's actually just a habit of mine that I've realized I do because now I see it in somebody else. I even talk to my dogs, I mean, I'm like, hey guys, what time do you want to go for your walk today? Like I can just be like, just randomly having a chit chat about, oh, I'm going up to work out. You guys want to come upstairs? And they're all like, yay, and four of them get very excited. They just do. It's very weird. And I am a bit nuts. I mean, it's fine. If you think I'm nuts, I deserve it.
You're just fine. So, we all talk to our kids, right? And I think that it's the best thing we can do. Talk to them with clarity, keep repeating it. It takes some time for them to understand. Shivaya is now 2.5. So every time I ask her, so what did you do in school today? And then she will try and formulate sentences. So you can see that her mind is working. She's trying to say, I danced or I painted or I did this. And then, when she just can't say beyond that, she just like go silent. I was okay, fine, that's also okay.
I love it. I love when their minds are like, you can hear their minds like working, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like a tick, tick, tick. So let's really not sugarcoat it, right? The early years is just about them eating, sleeping, pooping, and just, all of that on repeat mode and keeping you on your toes. So every mom has a unique story, right? That is probably why there is no school for parenting, right? I am a very career driven person. I just wanted to work. I wanted to set up my business. So for me, child was not a priority. But suddenly this COVID happened, right? And I was like, oh, I have so much time. Now what to do? Right. And then, obviously my husband wanted to have kids and I wasn't sure. And I said, okay, let's do it. It's now or never and let's do it. And I think it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I love being a mother. I think it makes me proud that I can actually take care of another human being and I wouldn't change it for the world. So what about you?
Like I pointed out in the beginning, I felt I needed to be ready. And I always wanted to be a mom, and there was a phase where I was really worried that I might not be one. After you have, a miscarriage twice, you're just like, wow, okay. A lot of sort of like stuff comes into your mind. But, motherhood is such a significant change. It just basically who we are and how we existed completely changes after you become a mom. Priorities have changed. And I've realized that for me, actually, the best coaching job I have ever had is being a mom. You know, being a health and fitness coach as my profession, I have literally, learned essential basics that over the past 10 years, I have tried my level best to create into habits that are easy for not only me to follow, because you have to set this, the example, but for my clients to actually embrace and understand that something as simple as your habits regarding nutrition need to just be very simple, right? The more complicated they are, the harder they are to follow. And honestly, how to create something like a balanced meal, for instance, is something that just, many of my, who are all women, my clients, they just don't know how to do. And they don't have like their basic routines set in place of, eating just at a regular time, or, of the day, or sort of like having meals at meal times. They have this tendency to like skip meals. They have, all of this together, unfortunately, ends up with them having issues like body dysmorphia, eating disorders, and in many cases just far worse, actually. Like, and this becomes their natural way of, dealing when it comes to food. Like, food becomes the enemy. And honestly, I've realized how important it is, because children soak up like sponges everything that we do, right? Everything that we're doing. They're just watching us all the time. And the thing is that I, as a coach, strangely enough, I'm not very strict. Okay. I don't believe in such a strict approach. I don't believe in rewarding exercise with special foods, or like today is my cheat day. I don't really focus on that being a criteria. I don't necessarily limit things to a certain day or an occasion. And, some people find that weird, but I have actually just found it that the way that my mind works, and when I am more relaxed and I don't have these restrictions put on me, I'm actually able to not give so much importance to something like a dessert, or something like a cheat day, or something like a reward. I worked out and burned this many calories. Oh, I deserve to have this. I've found that that is actually easier for me to deal with as a situation, than rather thinking that, these things need to be rewarded and they are, sort of tit for tat kind of a situation. I try to not, do that. And for me, food, bad associations with food can start so early, right? They start very early. I sometimes realize that. And I understand that, food isn't the enemy. I try to sort of put that through, across desire. I just, I don't overemphasize anything. I try and look at food that is good for us in a very excited way, like, yay, we're going to have avocado tonight, or like, we're going to be having, sweet potato fries, like whatever. Like, I just try and make it sort of like, an exciting thing. And I kind of, try and make both clients and my child understand and remember that, food is not the enemy. Okay, I think that's just like one of the things that I have found that I need to try and make it out very clearly to sort of like, everyone that I'm working with. Because I remember that if you're a bad, confused, reward driven, restricted eater as a parent, then your children is going to be completely the same. And that's what we have we started to understand that. And food issues need to end with us as parents, so that we don't transfer these problems. I mean, we get it enough. There's enough stuff and pressure on women, especially out there, when it comes to body image. And I just think that it needs to end with us as parents and teach our kids knowledge. Knowledge is power.
Yeah, knowledge is truly power. When you become a first time parent or a mom, it takes some reading up, it takes some, you've constantly at it, right? Especially when it comes to nutrition, because you're suddenly like, oh, whatever this child, at 6 months eats is on me. So people take that responsibility very seriously, and you should. But sometimes I feel that, I mean, being in the space of nutrition for kids, I feel that it's taken way too Seriously, right? There's so much of emphasis put on it as to what they're going to, I mean, of course you have to think of very strategically what they should eat, but how much have they eaten? Have they eaten 1 cup? Have they eaten half a cup? How many calories is that? How much is that? You know, that child is getting all that energy. It's understanding everything, the anxiety, the whole dynamics are changing. So, I just say that there's a very simple line that says, your kids will 100% eat, what you eat, what your house eats, what your family eats, right? So, if you like to have, let's say, chai with biscuits, they're going to have chai with biscuits. My daughter wants her tea once in a while, and I can't say no, right? I love my tea. So, I can't be so black and white. I can't say no, I'm going to have tea, but you just drink your milk. That just doesn't work. And now when they start speaking, they just want to say and they want to ask and they want to do everything on their own, right? So, I think that, there's just no yes and no's. It's not black and white. With nutrition, keep it simple. Don't put too much pressure. Don't be too anxious. And if you're going to have a dessert after a meal, then make a healthy dessert for your child after their meal, yeah, because they're also going to want it. I mean, you can't deny it to them. So basically everything that, if you as a family or anyone as a family likes to have dessert after their meal, make a healthy dessert for your child as well, right? Because it's going to permeate in their life and the way they eat. If you don't want them to pick up the habit, then sorry, just give it up, right? There's no two ways about it. So that be aware and keep it simple, when it comes to nutrition.
The thing is, as my approach as a coach, as I pointed out, is that I try to share the knowledge aspect, the science behind it, and display excitement for meal times, for feeling satisfied after I've eaten something that's really yummy, like, eggs and toast, for instance, just does wonders to my mood. Like, anyone who knows me really well would be like, bro, it's just eggs and toast. And I'm just like, I love that. And we'll have a piece of dark chocolate at the end of every meal. I just need something sweet, and I've satisfied myself well by doing that. And I'm content. I think being content is what's important. If you're content not having something in your life, then you're okay. But if you think about it all the time, which is what I find my clients actually do when they're told they can't have something, it's like what they want, right? Then they just can't function. And that's why I think that having everything in moderation is really, really important. And I'm not going to lie, but I have a Diet Coke every now and then, and Zai sees me have it. I don't try to hide it from him. I just be like, oh, you want something? And we've made like a little bit of a game. And he kind of is luckily more interested in the can than he is in the actual content of the can right now. So we do a little fake game where he pretends to have a sip and I'm like, and then he just like carries on like he's not interested in it anymore. And I just kind of like hope that that might continue on and he'll continue to just make that a funny game. I don't know where it's going. I'll have to see how this develops. But, when I have a Starbucks, I'm like, yay, we're going to Starbucks. You want to have a croissant? And then he'll see my straw and cup. That's more exciting. I'm like, oh, you want to have a sip? I like fake give him a sip. Whatever. I don't know how long it'll work. But the truth is, I just don't want to hide it from him if I'm doing it. Like you said, I think that that just gives the wrong ideas and then gives too much focus and too much importance to that particular thing, which is what I'm trying to kind of like avoid. I think that keeping myself happy by allowing myself to have these things once in a while is what allows me to just not overemphasize how good or amazing or anything they were, because I haven't put a restricted time on it. I can have it when I want. And, honestly, flat out restrictions in my life make me suffer from FOMO. Like, I literally have this fear of missing out in general, and it'll just play on my mind until I actually get to have it. So, let's see how this goes with my approach to this aspect of parenting. But yeah, I believe in moderation. So I think that restricting things will actually end up being more harmful than they will being more helpful.
I just reiterating what I said and keeping 4 basic tips in mind, which is basically you offer, they eat. If they don't eat, too bad. Just don't force it. Okay. Secondly, try to feed them the same time every day, right? You want to, we'll talk a bit more about routine, but you want to get the hang of pangs going because, they're used to having lunch at 1 and they're used to having dinner at 7, right? Please don't mash their food even when they start off at 6 months. Their teeth don't come out till they're 1.5 2. You're not going to give them mashed food till then, right? So I mean, give them soft food, anything that you can, like, if you can push it between your fingers, it's good to go. And lastly, just, keep them moving so that they actually get hungry. If they're just going to sit in front of a screen or not move, they're not going to get hungry. So keeping that, in mind, I think nutrition can be kept simple and we just don't, complicate it too much.
Yeah, I think this leads on really well, Sonali, because I think that we can address this next topic, even though I think it requires a lot more of an episode at some point down the line. But I think it's worth us mentioning is the whole aspect of breastfeeding implications and the pressures that we go through as mums, and how we're made to feel like that is how our kid is going to be set up really well for immunity situations, being a stronger kid and just much better for them, and this and that. And there's so much science that supports that. Agreed. But the thing is, for me, in my personal journey, I chose that to sort of be adaptable when that came across. And I did what helped to keep me sane and happy in that moment of what I think. And what you agreed with when we chatted about this is that you want to do what works for you and keeps you happy, right? As a mom. And despite, the recommended exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months, my experience with Zai was not easy at all. And because of my lack of knowledge, lack of guidance from people, and even just asking maybe, I my experience with Zai was not easy. When I look back now, I was in pain. I was uncomfortable from my C section. I felt restricted when I had to sit down in one spot and just wait and keep trying. When Zai was like he was really hungry in the beginning, so he would be crying a lot. And I gave into formula. Instead, I researched a really good formula, and I went out of my way to get hold of it. And I chose to like not have a screaming child and an uncomfortable grouchy mom, and gave him formula in the moment. And I was definitely consumed by a lot of guilt initially. When I look back, there were phases during that tough time as a new mom where you sort of doubt everything you're doing. And I would keep pushing myself through the pain, and I would be like, I need to pump more. I need to like try and like give him, supplement him a little bit, at least try. And I did. But I just, a lot of the time I would stress myself out more about the, having to do it, the pain that I had to sit through, the long nights that I was alone trying to figure out how to do this, and having a crying baby on top of things, and you feeling like you can't, supply adequately to them. I ended up, just with low milk supply, which makes it even tougher, right? Everything becomes just like a mess of like confusion, and it leaves you feeling, super guilty. And I was guilty to even ask for help because I was almost embarrassed. And let me put it out there right now, don't allow yourself to not ask for help. If you need it, ask for it. There's no right way to be a mom. And even though I didn't ask for it and I chose formula, I'm happy to say that I made an informed choice at that time, and I chose to be happy and content. And within 2 or 3 weeks, I was just a much more relaxed mom without that added pressure. I tried as much as I could for the first 3 months, but instead I let myself realize that it is what it is. He's happy, he's content. I can not be hard on myself, and I can be the happy mom that I should be. And I just think that it's worth us touching upon right now. And I know that your perspective was totally different and your experience. So why don't you tell me how you dealt with it?
Yeah, so of course, I mean, every mom wants to breastfeed, and that was definitely, I also had my added pressure. My husband, very cutely, he's like, I thought I wouldn't breastfeed. I said, no, 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 I have to get back to work. Formula is the way. And he used to be like, you'll breastfeed for a bit, no? I said, it is not your decision, okay?
Oh, that's
I
a
mean,
whole other
just
episode right there.
it was very sweet, of course. But, we're all formula babies at the end of the day. But I started the journey, I had a very tough birth. Pregnancy was easy, birth was really tough, but managed to had an emergency C-section. And when I started feeding, again, same problems, supply was low, didn't know the real positions. She was a hungry baby, but I took support, right? I had a doula, and I was in touch with her for the first few weeks. And my best friend had just had a baby who was also breastfeeding. So we would talk all the time. And I tell you, kid you not, she was literally like being my coach through the entire, those first 6 weeks, which are, I think they're just those first 6 to 8 weeks. If you get through to that, breastfeeding is a bliss, right? Because it's so much more convenient. And I think that another book that really helped me and sort of to go through breastfeeding was this one. So it's called Your Baby Week by Week. And everything that I sort of felt and was going through, it's like it was written, right? So I said, oh, I'm not the only one, right? There are a lot of other mothers going through the same thing. So, breastfeeding, not breastfeeding, formula, no formula, whatever it is, right? At the end of the day, the most important person who has to be happy is you as a mother, because that all of that energy is going into your child, and you don't want that stress, that anxiety, that pressure to go in. So go with what works for you, and it's your decision at the end of the day. So we have that power.
That's true. We honestly do have that power. And at that moment, like I said, I wish I felt like that. It took me a while to feel like that because this leads really well onto, there's obviously so much more we can talk about with breastfeeding, but I think it's more about the energy that you are giving across as your mom. You transfer that to your baby right from the get-go, right from day one, right? So being in the right peace of mind is good. This really nicely slips into sleep, okay, which is, I think another whirlwind of situations when it comes to parents. And, for first time moms, especially, I think we end up having very little say, right, when it comes to sleep because, you're their go to person. And, that whole idea of, 7 to 8 hours of recommended sleep just goes out of the window. And in fact, many people in your household, they don't even expect you to be sleeping. They're like, oh, you're a mom, you don't need to sleep. And I'm just like, what, right? It becomes like this whole situation. And I'm going to be very honest here about the situation because I want our listeners to realize that everyone's story is unique and different, and we do again what is easier or makes us happier parents. And I think that that is what we want to emphasize, because as your kid will pick up what you transfer, right? And with Zai, it's been nearly 2 years. He's nearly 2 years old, and I'm about to start this whole journey of sleep again with the next one in like 8 weeks to go. And I just want to say that putting your baby to sleep and teaching them how to sleep, I'm going to do it a little differently, even though I did use certain different approaches. I think that as moms, we deal with this quite differently. You would agree, right?
Oh yeah, I think that, I mean, ideally we would have liked to have sleep trained Shivaya, but we did none of it. We went the complete other way. Oh, we can't see our daughter cry, and this is inhuman, and I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. And I think that when you breastfeed, the game changes because it's so much easier, right? You just pop your boob out, and the child goes to sleep, right? That's it. You literally have to do anything. You might have to keep doing it over and over again, but eventually the child just comes to your boob, and you don't even get up sometimes.
By the way, tell me something, because I'm just preparing myself. Is like, when you do that, you then burp them every time as well.
You try, but they don't take so much at night, right? I mean, the first few weeks, yeah.
Right, smaller amounts.
First few weeks,
Yeah.
it's different because they are just on that cycle, right? I mean, there is no day and night.
That's so true,
There's no day and night.
because actually with formula, this is like a whole other conversation, right? By the way, but like with formula, like they would take so much more than probably that they could take, that they would end up puking, and the burping was so important.
Yeah, yeah. So, it's, I think with, I guess formula and bottles were not there before. So the child would just breastfeed, go back to sleep, and then that just be, a cycle. So I did that for about 14 months. And then after that, I said, peace out. And now my husband, since then, has been sleeping with Shivaya. I know how lucky I am, no doubt. But it's just
My
been.
husband doesn't even wake up.
No, yeah, that was great. So but we didn't have it in us to sleep train, right? So we just put her next to us on the bed, and it's been going ever since. But now she won't sleep alone, right? So it's 2.5 years, she needs someone there. So again, it's got its ups and downs, pros and cons, right? But I think that a couple of things that I feel that if you go down the completely leftist route, just make sure that, even if you're breastfeeding fully, make sure you give the bottle, right? If they don't take the bottle at a very early age and they get so used to the breast, then you're screwed for a long time, right? So you want to have the option to be able to switch out, right? Sometimes just give the bottle, and once they understand, they'll, you give it early, they'll, sort of do it. And I listened to a lot of meditative music. We used to put her sleep into meditative music, and that worked. So that was our journey. I think that if we have another child, I might take advice from you on how to self-soothe and train, because I don't think work will allow me to do, the first time round same. Anyways,
I did do my own version of sleep training. And I think that a lot of that was because I chose right from day one not to have any help. And we went across like that for a full year where it was just me and Varun. And that meant that I needed to definitely find ways to get a timeout, right? So sleeping had to be something that was, just he, I just felt that he had to learn. And we did our own version. We did the soothing one of the 10 minutes, let him be. I feel like we actually did it probably a little too late in life. We should have actually done it earlier on. And I feel like this time round, that is definitely what I'm going to be trying to do. But, I have to say that I use things like the pacifier. I don't find again that Zai is addicted to the pacifier, because many people are like, oh, you'll never be able to get it out of his mouth. And I'm like, no, not at all. Actually, he's just, I think for me, like it just, I had the same kind of approach where I just thought that if I don't put too much focus on it, it's not going to be that important. And luckily that kind of attitude has seemed to just work. He just wants it, to go to sleep at night. But when I go and check on him, like an hour and a half later, it's just hanging out of his mouth. He's not even having it, right? He just kind of like needs it when he goes back to sleep. Proudly, I'm going to say that after my all different ways of trying to sleep train and teaching him to self-soothe and things like that, at the age of 1, we shifted him into his own room. He sleeps in his own room, which is great. But I still do need to go, because we associated a little bit of drinking milk in the night with going to sleep, which again is a mistake, which in the moment you end up using any option that you have. So he still needs a little bit of milk every night, very small amount, but he doesn't need me. He doesn't need a human. He just needs the bottle in his crib. He'll drink it, puts the lid back on in the dark, and puts it back in that corner, by the way. And I'm just like I need a refill. So he's very kind of like independent, and I'm really happy, that worked out. And I mean, honestly, he can wake up and play by himself for 15 or 20 minutes in his crib. He won't have a meltdown. He's fine being alone. I think that we accomplished some pretty good things, because it gives us as parents, and if you're only doing everything by yourself and you don't have help, then it gives you that little window, right, where you don't feel bad that he's like screaming out of like being alone. you know I think that it allows me also to then establish this foundation that I think will work long term for Zai, because now he can actually self-soothe himself and look after himself for a few minutes here and there, and not have a meltdown. He knows he has his dummy. If he's relax, he needs to relax. In fact, when I tell him relax, he puts his head back. He's like learning like these like different things, which is like really funny, because I think that it's important that we rub off these sort of things on our kids. And I think that this idea of relaxing, by the way, will really smoothly get us into our next element, which is, of course, my favorite element, which is movement, because I think that it is really important that we sort of make use of the fact that our bodies are designed to move, right? We are designed to function and move. And kids show that just so brilliantly. I mean, like, have you seen a kid doing a perfect squat at this age and then see them at 6 years old or 5 years old? They can't do it anymore. They can't do it anymore. Their bodies just forget how to move just like normally. And, I basically ensure that Zai gets a huge amount of movement. When he's frustrated, I move him. When he is upset, I move him. When he's hungry, I give him a snack and be like, let's go outside and run. Movement is medicine. I really do believe it's like medicine. And I found that, luckily Zai is obsessed with football. I don't know from where he's picked it up, and it keeps him on the go. And there's a lot that he can actually learn from practicing skills like a sport. I think you can agree that movement and sport is super important.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's no two ways about it, right? I mean, Shivaya, this is the beauty of living in a city like Gurgaon, but still living in a condominium, right? So she can go out to play. I don't have to worry so much. And because I myself am very much into fitness and I believe in movement, I want her to go out all the time, right? So 2-3 hours a day is basic. And then I even picked a preschool which has a gym, like a kid's gym. Yeah.
Awesome.
And I was like, you know what? You're there for
Yeah.
3 hours, but at least at 1 hour, you're just like running around, hanging, or like just, whatever it is that you're doing, you're just moving, right? So that's the most important thing. And we'll come back to why movement and screen time and, how they're so, integrated, but not in the best way, right? Because they pull each other apart. So movement is great. It's the most important, and we have to keep that going. And again, comes back to the main point. If we move, they move. If we sit and watch television all day, they're going to sit and watch television all day. I mean, Zai sees you work out. I'm sure is going to be in his blood.
Poor guy doesn't
Yeah,
have
he
any
does not have it.
choice. He was doing any, now he walk, it's like he walks over a carpet surface, even if it's a carpet, and he'll just do
Oh,
three
nice.
squats, and then he'll keep walking because he just thinks the mat is like
Oh my
my
God.
mat, right? And sometimes I think, and then he looks at me, because I sometimes think he's just like mocking me, like he's trying to be like, oh mom, look here, like I really think he does that, which is quite funny, because I think that it's just so important that all areas of fitness and the skills that go with playing a sport help create such a versatile kid. We learn so much, we get such good habits from just participating in like activities that involve movement. They help us test ourselves, we try new skills, we can practice using our body differently, it makes our mind work differently. We're driven, we're focused on like getting better at something and just trying out new things, because movement just teaches so much about our body and our minds, and just shows us what we're capable of. And I really am so grateful that this area of work is what I live for and what I sort of represent, because I'm so excited to you know um pass that on to Zai, and I hope that I continue to do so, because dude, it's going to be a challenge in this world where everything is on a screen. It just is like, there's just, but it's also nice to see how health and fitness is becoming so much more important across the world.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think we picked the best of the both worlds. And at the end of the day, right, these are the formative years. So if we instill it now, it's going to stay with them for life. And I say the same thing about nutrition, right? If you give them the right foods and they pick up, 50% of what you want, because once you cross two, right? Really, it's not your choice. They're going to want what they like to eat. It's as simple as that. Like, and there'll be days they won't eat, there'll be days they'll eat it really well, and you just have to like flow with it. And we've spoken about that, and that basically wraps up this entire section. And I'll just say that when it comes to all of these three things, like sleep, nutrition, and movement, right? With sleep, your sleep is as important as theirs, so choose a path that works best for you. And if you can, I know it's hard, but sleep when the baby sleeps, right? Nutrition, you offer, they eat. Be cool, don't put too much pressure on it. Believe me, that negative association, once it sets in, it is the hardest thing to break, right? And if you have a tough time with your child, I mean, any of the listeners, this is like been a bible. It says that my child won't eat. This guy is a nutritionist, Spanish, and he's just beautifully laid it out on how you can reverse it as well. And movement, just keep moving. You move, they move, right? So that kind of sums up this entire section and takes us to my favorite part, the magic of routine. Routine is key. So what do you think about it?
So, Sonali, it's like, in my experience, I think having a routine is like having a secret weapon. Okay. And this doesn't just apply to kids, but it applies to us as humans. It gives us purpose, it gives our day structure, and it gives us, no sort of like scenario where we sort of don't show up. It gives us responsibility, and it gives us like discipline, which above all, I think, is what ends up, allowing us to actually be the best versions of ourselves, is because we're able to do all the things that we set out to, we're committed. And I think that routine really sets that in the right motion. Even my dogs have a routine, and like my mom will be like, the dogs will like jump up at 5 p.m. and they're like standing there staring at me. I'm like, they're like, yes, I know, it's walk time. And I think that sticking to this concept of routine in my entire house, even Zai, 5 o'clock, it's weird. He knows it's like time. We all go for a walk. The dogs and us, it's a walk time. That's what holds us together. It holds the chaos together in our lives. And I feel like it brings some zen to your life. I mean, you would agree, right?
Yeah, I mean, totally. I'm such a stickler, like to the level where my friends have pretty much told me that, dude, just loosen up a bit, right? And when it comes to kids, I think that the minute they're in a routine, a lot of those meltdowns are taken away, because they know exactly, like all humans like to know what's going to happen next, right? It's just human nature. So if they know exactly what's going to happen next, then they're okay with it, right? They've made peace with it. When they're not okay with it, of course they'll make it loud and clear. But they thrive on routine and knowing that, okay, this is time to sleep, this is time to eat, this is time to go out. And I'm super anal. I make sure that my nanny keeps it to the T. And even with hunger pangs, it happens, like 7:30, it's dinner time, she needs a dinner. So I think that, rather than letting that mood tsunami hit you, right? Just keep a routine. And then within that, here and there, you'll have some tantrums, but it's a game changer in parenting, in my point of view.
Spot on. I really agree with you. And I try to do this with all my clients. And I tell them that they need to get into a really full fledged, stubborn routine. There's this, this little gem from John Maxwell, which I've read. And it's, you'll never change your life until you change something you do daily. The secret of your success is found in your daily routine. And honestly, it just rings so true. Habits and routines are the stitches that make up this crazy blanket of our lives. Habits are like autopilot once they get into a routine, and it just allows consistency, and it just allows everybody to be on the same page, and it really allows for people to really flourish and be the best version, and our kids really really benefit from us being like that ourselves and instilling that for them too.
Exactly. So I always say this, and I say this about work. Like, people ask me, how have you managed to start a business, have a child, run a home, X, Y, Z? I said, routine. It sets you free. The minute you have a routine, your mind just flourishes. Thoughts can flow. Time, I mean, you don't think about the kitch, what's going to happen next, where's the food coming from. Just set a routine, set it out, get it out of the way so that you have time to, think. So, I mean, the kids don't always have to think why. So have a routine, and again, you do it, they do it. I have a routine. Shivaya knows in the morning mom's not there, she's gone to the gym. I'll come back, drop her to school, she knows the routine. So I think that uh, make sure your kids have it, make sure you have it, and you'll see the magic happen, basically.
I agree, because this literally, all of this brings us back to the crux of our entire chat today, is that what we do now, the habits that we instill now, the values that we uphold, they are laying down foundations and stepping stones for our children's path, basically. Right? It's like we're co-building their future, and as parents it feels like we're nurturing like this really pretty little garden. We're planting seeds which we hope will one day bloom into actions and choices that empower them and prepare them to deal with everything that gets thrown at them in life, because life isn't all beautiful. It just isn't.
And this really moves into our next section, which is your actions today shape tomorrow, your tomorrow's foundation, right? So, actually, really means behavior, right? So, again, going back to what our topic is, they mimic you, you are their world. Please do not forget that. Now in the last 6 months, I kid you not, like, Shivaya is watching me literally like a hawk. Every single thing I do, she wants to do. And I put up a video recently of, I enjoy doing makeup, right? The best part for me of going out is to getting dressed. So she wants to do makeup. And I said, you're two, right? So what do you do? But they will end up doing what you do, and you're building that, so you have to be so much more aware of what's happening, how you're dealing, how you're talking to the staff in your home, how you sort of, if you and your husband have a tiff, right? I mean, it happens, it's normal. How do you actually make up? That's the most important part, because things like that happen. It's normal, it's human nature. But how do you deal with that situation is what we want to instill in them right now, because that's exactly how they're going to deal with it, right?
Yeah, I'm just going to tell you something really funny that happened yesterday. Is that I realized that I actually, like I've been with my husband like 20 years, okay? And like we got together where like, we're like, oh, we're not allowed to sit on the same sofa like in this house. My mom would be like staring at us and being like, no holding hands. So that concept of like displaying affection doesn't come like super naturally to him and me. And I realized just the other day that like I'm always asking Zai for a kiss and a hug, but I never ask Varun, like I'm like, and like the other day I was like, oh, Papa's giving me a hug. And Zai's face was all like staring at me, like with this look on his face, being
Oh
like,
my
what are you guys
God.
doing? And then I
Yeah.
realized like that I need to do this more. Like we need to do like group hugs. Like we need to do like, involve, like it's crazy how they pick up, what, energy that sometimes you don't even notice you're sort of like giving across.
Totally. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just nature versus nurture debate, right? How you talk, how you behave shapes the person. I mean, if you took two people born, let's say two kids born to the same parent and put them in completely different environments, right? Say one grew up in Kanyakumari and one in Ladakh or something, they'd be different people. They'd be completely different people, and they'd be shaped by their family, right? Everything that happens in their family is what's going to shape them. So again, very loaded. It's a lot to digest, but let's be aware and sort of go with that. I mean, my mom is 75 and still working and still running her own business. So I've only seen that she got to work pretty much, I think, 2 weeks after I was born. I've only seen her work. Of course, she's been a great mom. She's been there. She's juggled it all. But I've had a working mom. So for me to work, it's second nature. Like, I don't know myself if I'm not working, and that's because that's what I've seen. So it's very different and it's very personalized.
That's really true. And I think it's interesting for me to bring in over here is that my life is, now kind of termed as an athlete. Okay. It's like when you train a certain amount and you eat in a certain way, and it's like a regular thing, and you look a certain way the whole time, and, whole life revolves around it. At least when you're trying, you basically, what I've realized is that my athlete brain, so to say, is like this treasure chest of life lessons that I definitely use for myself and for my son. And life, I think, like sports, has its ups, it has its downs. Like sometimes where, people are getting married, where, growing a human, we're having babies, we're dealing with heartache, we're dealing with loss, we're dealing with resetting, rebooting, we're dealing with injuries, we're dealing with, people passing away. I think a lot of these factors teach us how to juggle stress, right? And us as parents are um always having to learn how to bounce back when life throws like a curveball at us. And I'm reminded all the time that, when Zai was learning to walk, I was so worried that he might sort of like fall or hurt himself, which is normal. Everybody thinks that, but I realized that I do have to find a way to let him learn on his own. And much to people's crazy attacks and comments, because when you're out there on Instagram, everybody likes to give you their opinion. I used and found this amazing harness, and everybody was like, oh my god, you're putting your child on a leash. And I'm like, yeah, I walk my four dogs and my son, we walk on a leash. And I would get this stuff thrown at me, and I was like, in my mind, I was like, I'm assisting him to do. Otherwise, I would feel like people keep picking up their child all the time or holding them by one arm, which in my mind, you're going to end up with one arm longer than the other, one arm stronger than the other. Okay. If you go from like a bodily perspective, that's going to happen. Okay. So I was just like, I think that having this harness gives him this support where I can protect him if he falls, but at the same time, let him loose and let him explore in a balanced manner how to sort of like walk in practice. And Zai was walking at 11 months. Like he was walking at 11 months. He was squatting at one, like properly what I would do on a call, 10 squats, like up and down. And I'll be like, yeah, you know. And I feel like kids really navigate their skills on their own when they participate in their environment, where they test themselves. So you have to create that scenario that they can do that. And they learn from the pressure and the anxiety. Like people are like, oh, isn't he going to get hurt, or aren't you restricting him from doing stuff? And I'm like, no, I actually know how to give him enough leeway on the harness. And I'll be like, mind your head, be careful, watch your head, look behind you. And it's nuts at such an early age how they pick up those cues that then actually work in your favor later on, which I'm going to explain to you in a second, further down the line, about how I used some of these cues, like no, or don't go there, or be careful. Like there's a lot of stuff that goes about using these sort of phrases with your kids, but I have to say, it worked differently for me.
Yeah. So I think that's interesting. I think, that also brings up to the next section, which is the fourth section, sailing through social seas and moral tides. That was a bit of a tongue twister. So, they're sort of, we're gearing them up, right, to just take on, go and sort of resolve conflict, right? Apart from learning the ABCs and the one, two, threes, is how do you resolve conflict? And that brings us to the whole topic of no, right? I think you and I have done it quite differently. I really did restrict myself from saying no, right? It was like, okay, if you bite, don't bite, kiss, right? So the word no was used as less as possible, and a lot of explanation followed with that. But there are times when you have to say no, like, you know what, your time's up, no more screen time, she would cry and cry and cry. And I just had to let her, I couldn't budge, right? And now it's fine because, you know, she knows the time's up and that's it, right? She's not, you know, so again, it's like you have to, how to say, choose your battles when it comes to these things. Also, what happens is that now she says no a lot, even though I said it so less, like, no, no. And I'm like, why? Just say yes once, please, just
Yeah.
say yes. But that is the, you know, so it's a really tough one to navigate. And I think that everyone has their own opinion on it and how you deal with it. But whatever you do, you've got to explain it. You have to tell them, you have to give them context as to why you are asking them to do a certain way. Like if you're saying be careful, you're saying no, don't do that, is because they're going to get hurt. And then eventually they understand that, right? Sometimes you just have to let them hit themselves and you're like, okay, fine, I told you so. But it's tough to navigate this whole space of how to say it, when to say it, you know, and goes back to our that whole topic on how to parent.
Yeah, I think that this, sailing through social seas and moral tides, I do love this sort of title because, I think that our children are definitely growing in a world which is highly complex and it's very challenging. I think that it's very different from our parents' time. They're going to encounter much more in all forms social issues, such as bullying. I mean, like dealing with that one is difficult, dealing with the pandemic and the restrictions that I think many parents had to put on their kids. Like all of these issues that come about really make it all the more important that the way we kind of provide these so-called life jackets for these kids to deal with stress is important. And I think that's where I want to bring in here this idea of the big bold no that you have brought about, because this was a learning hill for me, because I did face a lot of criticism on my Instagram for putting up a video of Zai and I, him trying to bite me and me saying no. And my no was very stern and very strict. And he would kind of challenge me, but still try to do it again. And, and I would try to say how it isn't nice to bite and, only loving, kind of similar to how you said, but my no was quite stern, and some found it too harsh. And the truth is that I read something because I felt like I needed some kind of like confirmation as to why my natural instinct was to teach him this word no. And I read that this particular doctor, Markham is his name, and he would say that shying away from using the word no can leave your kids quite ill prepared for the real world. Like it sort of allows you to create boundaries, because there are boundaries in life, right? There are some scenarios that definitely demand a clear no go zone, right? They just do. Like, teaching them the do's and don'ts of something like road safety, for instance. Like, I mean, you're not going to be like, oh, don't, like, you're not going to like try to be really soft when like a car is coming. You're going to be like, shout out no. And if your kid doesn't understand that response or that boundary crossing, you're going to have a problem. These are sort of situations, and you're etching these boundaries early on, and you're sculpting like a future where your child, you're hoping, is going to imbibe these moral values like gratitude and honesty and sharing and respect, boundaries of other people, cooperation, compassion. Like, these are the real deal. Like, these are things that kids are going to learn, and learning the word no is such a base form for that, at least I believe. And even as babies, they start to pick up the difference between right and wrong so early on, right? They embrace these moral ideas from us. They craft personalities and characters that they can be proud of, and we can be proud of as parents.
So I think with no, you know, it's all about the context and how you say, like, no one's saying, you know, don't say no. But when you say no, you have to repeat yourself as to why you're saying no, right? And also the thing is, like, you know, when Shivaya paints, right? Now, first, I used to tell her that don't smudge the walls, right? She's gonna go and just make, you know, she'll do her painting, then she'll go and go fadak, right? Like she wants to do that because she knows it triggers me, and I,
By the way, I
yeah,
have to say, I have to say, there are, when you tell a kid, no, you can't do that,
exactly.
they only want to do
But
that,
that's a thing,
which is
right?
going back to like my whole point about. Yeah.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, what do I, in that situation, I was like, okay, I just use me, she doesn't know, but these are washable, so it's okay. And then I make her here, now you just clean this up, right? Do this. So I just stopped saying, like, I stopped her from doing it. But yes, but in like dangerous situations or in like absolute situations, you have to sort of, like road safety, 100%, right? You have to sort of draw the line because they don't have the understanding that this car can come and, they don't have that understanding. So I think, but what happens is that people use it so often that they instill fear, right? So the child grows up thinking that, oh no, I can't do this, no, I can't do that, no, I can't do this, no, I can't do that. The minute they start thinking like that, that's when the fear sets in, and then that's that kind of reverses the entire parenting that you've done. And now we can talk about no to screen time, the digital dimension. I've been a strict no for that one, for sure.
I'm loving these titles that we've been giving that are sections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How have you dealt with it? I mean, what's your take? And then I'll give mine.
I'm definitely one for not like being able to ignore this massive digital elephant situation. People criticize me about being on Instagram all the time, and I'm like, it's my job. I'm on the phone a lot, etc., etc. And I feel like our kids are, no matter what and however we look at it, they're sort of born into this Wi-Fi'd world. Up to their eyeballs. I mean, in my husband, he's working in technology, he's developing apps with AI. I mean, he's on the computer all the time. So this is a complete battleground for us in our house quite often. But at the end of the day, I think we need to take it in a certain way where, at least for me, I'm not going to lie. And there have been times where I've used screen time to sort of like relax Zai or calm him down or give myself a breather. I'm just like, dude, I need to wind down too. So I know he'll sort of relax. And I use, interestingly enough, Zai loves to watch videos of himself playing football, for instance. Like, I keep videoing him out and about, doing funny things or playing with any form of a ball is his obsession. And he'll like to just only watch his own videos. And I don't know whether he's going to turn into this like narcissist, like, person, like when he's like older. I'm just like, oh my God, like what kind of like effect is this going to have? But at the end of the day, I'm really happy that he's trying to practice his craft, and get really good at his skills. But yeah, sometimes where he's getting a little cranky and he's not finishing his, food, or not finishing, or not just, just not like eating it like contently, or he's relaxed, I do pull it out on the plane, on the airplane, when we go to a restaurant where, it's just like really difficult, and you don't want the rest of the world to have like a screaming child in their face. I have pulled out like these videos, and I'm like, oh, Lay, let's watch this. So, I am guilty, again, in moderation, of allowing things. I stand by that approach. And I just think that the simple act of putting our phones on sort of like off sometimes, and just diving into some focused playtime, and letting Zai know that, what, we'll watch it later, or we'll save it for some, family time. We'll all sit together and watch something on the sofa, is like a better approach than, at least for me, making him cry it out and just leave him and say like, no, 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 we're not going to do it. I just find like this for me is a easier way to balance tech time and just being more aware and conscious about it.
Yeah. I mean, we've just put it into routine, right? I pushed her watching television till much, much late, where we basically tried, we didn't introduce her to the phone or a screen till much later. I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing, So now it's just designated
Great,
time.
great. You are well done. Well done. I mean, that's a challenge in itself. Like I said, I think parents really do things in amazing ways when they need to. Challenges, right? You manage.
Yeah, but now it's like when she's watching TV, she's watching TV, right? That's it. No one can touch her. No one can, like, it's her time. She's in the zone, right? But it's also a weapon then, right? If shit hits a roof, like you say, we're on a plane and I need to just calm her. If I put this on, it's silence. We're all good, right?
We're all good. I feel really bad. I feel really bad thinking about our parents and the earlier generations. Like, what the hell did
Yeah.
they use, man? Like,
Seriously, it must have
honestly.
been much, much harder.
Harder, but I also like to think that they just used to let us scream and shout and be very like, sort of imposing on other people around us, is pretty much what I think. My mother was like, yeah, I used to just let you scream and shout and throw a tantrum on the floor in the airport. I was like, great. I don't know, like, if that's like something that'll be acceptable anymore in today's, like,
I mean, they also travel less, right? I mean, it's different. Like
yeah,
you,
true.
you lived in a
Yeah.
joint family. I think it was very different. There were so many other kids to play with all the time. So we followed a couple of things that I've always followed. Is one, do not give the phone or iPad, because once they realize that they can run around with it, the whole game changes, right? So it's like, okay, this is a fixed object. You have to sit, for the eyes, because they're obviously developing. You got to keep this distance, and then it's on. When you're done, TV's off, time to go play. Obviously, it's not that I've not used the iPad, it's not that I've not used the phone, but it's very limited. And even then, I keep it, and she's not allowed to touch it. She's not allowed to touch it, dude. She's to stay away. She's to sit at a distance and do it. I mean, by now, most kids of her age can like play their own song, literally, right? Shivaya can't, and I haven't. I don't know if that's a good thing, bad thing, but we've kept it sort of. But yeah, when she was watching TV, she's watching TV, and I have to give her that time. Then. I've promised it. It's part of a routine. You've got to get it. And screen time while eating, though, is just. It's not something that I promote or advocate at all. Also, and it's not for any other reason, because I also feel that kids will lose the sense of just eating, right? They don't then know. Like, I have seen kids who are literally with an iPad, the maid is feeding them or the parent is feeding them, they will eat whatever is given to them. They don't know what's going in, they don't know how much is going in. So you've already lost your sensation of understanding food, right? Like,
Even parents are like that, adults are like
yeah,
this,
exactly.
yeah.
So I don't want that, and we don't do it. We don't watch that much television. So I think that that also permeates to her, and that's why childhood obesity is so big in India, right? Because A, the quality of food that you're feeding, and B is the screen time feeding, right? So if you can manage it the way you do, like in and out, not it's not the focus and this and that, I think it's okay. But avoid it if you can. Otherwise, it becomes too convenient. Yeah, it's too convenient.
No, I agree. I think this is definitely a balancing act in this world. It's a challenge for all parents, and the way in which we handle it very much does have an effect on how our children will sort of grow. So it is something that we have to be very aware of, and in most cases, it's our own habits of our own screen time and our own watching TV or video, whatever it is we're doing, that actually our kids are learning from. So it's actually us who has to pull back in order to suggest to them that that's the way to go. I am happy to say that this is bringing us on to our final section. But we took this challenge. We took this challenge to see what we could, this very heavy, strong, close to our heart topic, I think was the best place, even for you and me, to get to know each other. And I think that, our final section, which is what we have called growing together, one step at a time, is very much about us surfing the waves of our own personal growth, right? Because it's really crucial to remember the ripple effect that then has, like we've been saying, on our kids, right? Every action that we take is like we're planting a seed that one day will sprout into becoming their actual beliefs and their habits. Parenting, I think, is a lot more than just teaching our kids how to tie their shoelaces, right? Where also their go to emotional responses and interaction models. Like, we teach them how to deal with those aspects of life. And our every move, whether it's intentional or it's not, helps frame their mental situation. It helps frame their behavior.
How do you feel a feeling, right? Like, we have been brought up to not feel, right? Like, don't feel like this, boys don't cry, or like, this kind of
Oh
stuff. Like,
man,
why
that
you
this is a whole heavy topic you're touching
yes.
upon right now, Sonali. This stuff is like so deep and it's so required. It's
Yeah,
there,
but
it's out there.
it's out there, man, and you see it, and you see what people have gone through because they've been told that, right? So one step at a time, you have to de-link it. And not saying that the way my parents parented me, but I went for 3 years of therapy, right? And I think that every human being needs to go for therapy. That's a different, and again, another different topic. But allow your kids to feel, allow them to sort of know what that feeling is. We have basically four primal feelings, right? Which is angry, happy, sad, and love, right? Everything else, whether it's frustration, whether it's just sort of comes out of that. And we need to allow them to just sort of, dissect, understand, and feel each feeling. And then hopefully also the way we do it, they imbibe it, and they can, then deal with more bigger situations as they move out into the world.
I really like that. I can really relate to that because I think this, this athlete brain sort of thing that I keep finding myself going back to, and what I learned is that I think that, and the life lessons I continue to feel is that, I'm surprisingly, I'm not a very competitive person. I like the idea of pushing myself and seeing where I can go, and I like to show up. I like to participate. I like to show that I put in the hard work. I like to sort of demonstrate that I'm able to do those sort of skills rather than chase the aesthetic goals of like what my job actually provides. Because people are like, oh, it's your job and that's why, you look like this. And I'm like, yes, but it's also because I don't chase like the size of my muscle every day, or the how small my waist is. I don't show up to work with that as the criteria, but I show up to say, how can I be the best version of myself, knowing that I've put in hard work, that I've challenged myself, and that I showed up. Pregnancy right now is one of those like scenarios in my life that I'm learning that I have to, give myself some rest and recovery. And also there is a time to push myself during this time as well. But both things need to work hand in hand, right? You need to be able to pass on that idea to your kids that taking time out to recuperate or to replan or to, recover is equally important as is pushing yourself, showing up, staying committed to like what you sort of like set out to do. Because honestly, keeping it real and accepting that our current reality is anything but ideal, right? It changes all the time. It's honestly an exhilarating journey, and we're doing this alongside with our children, right? For them everything is something new. I sometimes find that so mind-blowing that he's seeing or doing something for the first time. Like how rare is it for us to see something for the first time or feel something for the first time now? It's just so rare, right? But as a kid, that's what they're doing, right? And you want to celebrate them becoming these unique individuals and get in on that excitement about seeing it for the first time, and then guide them correctly. Because at the end of the day, they push us to be the best versions of ourselves. They remind us about like how beautiful the small things in life really are. I think kids are able to just keep reminding us about that. And being a mom, truly lights up all those areas that we need to work on, actually. And therefore, be the best coaches for our kids. Like, that's what we are. We're coaching them. And I think that's a massive responsibility that we need to remember.
Phew.
Some deep stuff
Okay,
there, Sonali.
that's probably,
deep stuff.
yeah. We've spoken enough. I think we've covered a lot. I don't even think I'm going to attempt to sum it up here. But I think that it was fantastic. It's really like both of us individually have been wanting to start and do something like this. And we finally sort of, we just connected after I don't know how many years, and we've decided to do it, which is just fantastic.
I'm really glad. I'm really glad.
And I'm soon going to have muscles like Zoe. She's training me. Just guys, and you'll see that I will be showing them off very soon, but I don't know when that's going to happen, but that should happen. Okay. So I think we've got a little game time, right?
We have a fun way to sort of like something a little, like an element of sort of drama to our show at the end of every episode. And we are going to do our own version of a rapid fire round, which is where I'm going to ask questions. In this case, I'm just asking them. But me and you, Sonali, are going to just answer yes or no immediately, like as fast as we can, without much time to really think about our answers. And we want to try and make this as rapid fire as possible. And got some, some controversial questions in there, which I think are fun, which I think will be interesting if we end up having different responses that maybe we can elaborate on them if we choose to, if we want to. Okay. Are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go.
Question 1. Is it okay to lie to your kids about Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy? Yes.
No. Can you imagine?
I have no idea why I said yes, because I think lying actually is very wrong. But at the same time, I was lied to, okay, for Santa Claus
Yeah.
and the Tooth Fairy.
Yes.
And I remember being very excited about knowing about this magical creature. I read so many books
Yeah.
about these people.
Yeah, I don't know. I debate this a lot in my mind, and I know I have some time to decide. But first off, I'd probably say no because I like things told real, but that's just me. So I don't know if that's exactly how Shiva would want it. So,
But dude,
let's
like
see.
your child is going to end up being the buzzkill at all the parties when they're like, nah, Santa Claus ain't real. Like when Shivaya's playing
Oh my
with
God.
Zai's gonna be like, oh, Santa Claus is coming tonight, and she's gonna be like, no, it's your parents. Like,
Yeah, I
thanks,
think
that's
I need to
gonna be
read
the
up
situation.
a bit more on it before I make this decision. But first off, I said no. Yeah, I'm a bit of a. Let's see.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. Okay, question 2: is it okay for parents to decide their children's career path?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. 3: breastfeeding in public, a big yay or nay?
Big yay.
Yes.
Yes.
At least that's what I think. I like how I'm saying correct, as if like
If
I'm
it
like
works for
teaching
you.
you know. If it works for you, but I don't think it should be frowned
you,
upon.
yeah.
That's what we mean. And I think there's a
Exactly.
lot of
Yeah,
people
yeah.
who do frown upon it. Okay, question 4. Should parents discipline other people's kids when they misbehave?
No.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
Listen, okay, if my kid is hanging out with someone's kid and this child is like being, I'm obviously not going to be harsh and like,
Yeah.
throw my weight around and like pick a fight. Like, I'm not going to do that. But what I mean is like, I think that I would definitely try to use some of my ways of like calming the situation or approaching it, or at least being like, like,
No,
if
that's
we're gonna
different
hang
to
out, then
discipline.
This is the way you should.
If you discipline means that you're like, obviously if
like saying no, right? Are you going to say no to them?
I'd say it once, I'd say it twice, but I wouldn't push, like in the sense that
I'm just gonna pick a random child's name and be like, no, George, okay, you can't bite Zai. Like, I'm gonna be like,
Yeah.
and
No,
vice
of course,
versa.
it's different if that child is inflicting something on your child. It's a tough one. Yeah, of course.
But no, if I see this kid beating up another person's child, I'll be like, go for it, go.
Oh my god, I generally I don't know, man, maybe I would. Yeah, not been in a situation yet.
Clearly, you're not sending Shivaya over to Zai for play dates. Clearly, you're gonna be like,
Actually, with Myri, which is my best friend's daughter, I think that I have told her, but I've not tried to discipline her because every parent has such a different parenting style, right? Like, I'll say, okay, Myri, don't do that, maybe try this, but that's about it. Like, I'll be very clear about boundaries. Maybe that's what I mean to say. Yeah.
okay. 5: do you ever bribe your kids with treats to get things done?
I've done it, so
So I don't know what I mean by the treats. Is it a food treat or like something else?
yeah, I keep a stash of, let's say, candy. And when I really need her to do something and I'm not able to, like sometimes she's just randomly thrown a tantrum because she doesn't want to go to school. I know she's okay to go to school, but she's just in that zone. I was like, okay, here gets the candy out, and then we're all happy, right? That kind of stuff I have done, even though it's against that whole reward versus thing. But sometimes, yeah.
Fair. Okay. So if we're using the food and the thing, because I genuinely just don't believe in that being the reason to do stuff. I've never used food.
Or like even screen time. Screen time is a treat, right?
Yeah. So that's what I mean. Like, I've used but I say it differently. I try to, and I'll be like, okay, do you want to relax? Do you want to chill out? Let's watch something, like, time out. Like, this is how I approach it. I don't know whether it rubs off in the same way, but I think this is it's a good question. Okay. This I think we've kind of answered. Question number 6 is screen time allowed during meal times just to ensure they eat? I'm going to say sometimes yes.
Yes.
Okay. When we've explained our reasons as to why. Okay. Question 7. Have you ever looked at another friend's kid, maybe your child's best friend, and been like, dude, my kid is way cooler?
Ooh.
Yes.
I have too many friends who have too many
Like,
no, cooler.
I'm like, oh, phew, thank God my kid is not doing that. And then I'll turn around and Zai will be like licking the floor.
Oh
and I'll be
my
like,
Oh my god. Every parent is guilty of this, dude. Every parent. Any parent who says they are not is lying. For sure. Okay?
They are, for sure. They are. They
Oh my
have
God.
these voices in their head that are just chitter-chattering to them about saying like, oh, thank God mine doesn't do that. I agree. Okay. Question number 8. Is fast food ever acceptable meal for kids?
No, but as I grow older, It will be.
Yeah, I've given Zai chicken nuggets and fries once. I gave him like half my filet of fish burger.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Now I've allowed.
Okay, next one. Question 9. Do you believe in helicopter parenting, or are you more of a free range parent?
Free range. You're always waiting for me to respond, dude. That's not good. I'm like seeing this. This is happening on question after question.
Because I'm just like, am I ready for the repercussions that I'm gonna get? Like I'm just like, oh.
I ain't judging you, so go for it.
I feel like I'm judging myself actually. I'm just like, wow. I feel like I'm somewhere in between. I feel like merge the two, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Something like
Okay,
that.
last question.
Okay. Last one. Question number 10. White lies to kids. Sometimes necessary or a complete no-go?
Necessary.
Necessary. Yeah. Okay. So, Sonali, with every episode, let's just do this because this is an exciting part and I think that it's important. This is how we will give across our very own fierce and fearless take home for our listeners. So, Sonali, do you want to go ahead and tell me how you feel?
Yeah. So fierce and fearless take home is basically be fearless and embrace, nurture bravery in your little one. Bringing up your child with fear is, I think, by far the worst thing you can do. There's just no two ways about it. And it's very tough to identify what is bringing up with fear versus what is not, of course, because that is a tough thing. But do some research, look internally, figure that out. I mean, does that statement that you're going to say trigger fear and you think about it, internalize it, right? So, because literally, if we tell them that, okay, this is a cockroach, be scared of it, they're going to be scared of it all their life. So think about it, right? Like this is, and especially if you are scared of it, then the 100%, right? So, like I've made sure I've gone to the extreme where I tell Shivaya repeatedly that you are not scared of anything. You can handle anything. And as she grows up, I will start telling her that, you know what, of course, you're not scared of anything, but you have to think about it. But right now, I want to literally engrave it in her brain that she's completely fearless, cold water, cockroach, snake, whatever the hell that comes through. You're not scared, right? You're completely fearless. You can do whatever the hell you want in your life. So that's my take home when you come to, nurturing. And it's been tough for me to imbibe that and be that person, but I think I'm slowly now getting there. So cultivate courage, emotional literacy in our children, and then, hopefully that's going to stick for life.
So, to end, my fierce and fearless take home for everyone today is that you want to embrace adaptability. Sure, we can plan every little detail. We want to always be prepared for the tides to change. But we have to remember that we don't want to wish away the hard seasons. And I think that this again comes back to this athlete mindset because there are times that you're going to be challenged. And trust me, it's all going to go by so quickly with your kid. They're like fleeting moments. The next stage is like there already. And I assure you that, and I'm living it already, where you find your way back to yourself and you realize that the tough times were momentary and they move on, and every season of your life will demand a different kind of you, as the intensity as or the role of the mother that you will play to your child will change, right? Each passing season will be different. And we often find ourselves torn between the ideal and the reality of our situations, right? We get confused between these two things. But the little secret here is that dealing with the real, the here and the now, and being present is the best way to actually take on that. And I think as a parent, this is something we need to remind ourselves. And even as a human being, right? Being present, I think, is the most important thing. And to understand that adapting to every situation is key. Motherhood is a journey that you will be embarking on with your kid. It's not you on your own, actually. I know that we haven't mentioned husbands much during this whole
We
episode,
really
but
have not.
they play this very small role, and we will address it at some point in life. We will bring them in.
Oh
Okay,
my God.
but kids, our kids really feed off our every word
Yeah.
and action, and it's an incredible blessing for us to actually get to watch these humans grow into these unique people, right? They take the foundations that we provide and they blossom into something of their own. Because, motherhood, has this amazing knack, and I think you can agree, to show us everything that we need to work on, right? It shows us how to be.
The true self comes out.
Correct, right? Our kids,
Yeah.
they guide us, they show us where we need to grow. And as we navigate this journey, like with them, it's our responsibility to kind of ensure that our parenting methods are adaptable and open minded, yet grounded and steadfast at their core, right? How I believe in a strong core. So being fierce and fearless, but flexible in the journey of raising these beautiful souls, I think is my take home for our listeners.
Anyways, guys, it's a wrap. Okay, we're done. I think we've had a really good episode number 1. Parenting is not a size that fits all. Let's trust our instincts. Let's celebrate the small victories, and we're in this together, right? So you guys, you moms out there, you want to reach out, just DM Zoe, DM me, reach out to my page at FeedSmart, or just drop us an email. All our details will be there, and we're completely accessible and would absolutely love to hear from you. So thank you so much for your time today.
Listeners, don't forget to hit that follow button on your favorite audio platform so that you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes. Remember, your support means a lot to us. It's what's going to get some of these conversations out there. There's so much that we have in store, and we can't wait to share all these topics with you. So until next time, ladies, stay fierce, stay fearless, and embrace the beautiful chaos of parenthood. Keep shining, ladies.
Well, ladies, that's a wrap on another really energizing episode of Fierce and Fearless. We hope our conversation has sparked something within you and given you some fiery inspiration to carry your day forward.
And remember, you're not just our listeners. You're our tribe, our community, and we're eager to hear your thoughts, your stories, and all your questions.
So just don't even for a second hesitate to reach out to us on any of our platforms or Instagrams. Share your victories, your challenges, and let's keep the energy rolling and this powerful dialogue going.
Don't forget to follow our show on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. We've got a collection of empowering discussions waiting just for you.
So until next time, ladies, remember, you are fierce, you're fearless, and you are part of a vibrant sisterhood. Stay bold and keep shining.